Dynasty.
And we're live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the pod. You are tuning into Backyard Dynasty. You are joined with the crew here. And to my right, I got my man,
Felitus.
And over to my left, I got
Scanny.
And you are joined by none other than Fancy Sons. Alrighty, let's go ahead and hop into this episode. We got a lot to talk about. All right, now we're going to go ahead and really take a moment to take a step back and celebrate that football is back, baby. Football is back.
Golf clap, golf clap, golf clap, golf clap.
All the way. Last night we had the Hall of Fame game that opens up the NFL preseason every year. It's always hosted in Canton, Ohio, where is also the Hall of Fame of football is located. And we had an interesting game. The Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets contested in a very cool match. The score was 21-16. The Browns go ahead and take it over the Jets. And how are we feeling about it, fellas? We got football's back.
Yeah, well, football's back, and I'm really excited about that.
But that game sucks, bro.
Yeah,
I was
trying to make it exciting.
I appreciate the enthusiasm. The Hall of Fame game is the most like random and not worthless, but there's this. We're watching a bunch of fourth string guys pretend to care about a football game with Aaron Rodgers on the sideline with a clipboard. It's cool. Football's back. We got 5 weeks to kick off. Lions and Chiefs.
Yep. The inaugural game that no one cares about.
Yeah, I feel bad. You were so enthusiastic, and Fleet and I were just sitting here like.
No, but it's facts. Like
ready to absolutely shit on your
it.
excitement.
No, but look, I'm just for performance. But you feel me? I didn't even watch it. I watched highlights, so that just kind of speaks a testament to that game's how much it.
It just wasn't. I mean, it wasn't really entertaining.
No.
The only thing was seeing the graphics, seeing the scoreboard, and hearing the voices. You're like, oh man, we're getting close. It's starting to feel like football season. So
yeah, if you're a real fanatic of the sport and you watch it very in-depthly, then you would enjoy watching the Hall of Fame game, because towards the end of the game, these are, like you said, fourth, fifth string guys, undrafted guys that are playing for their football lives. They're playing for their families, so they play with almost a different type of intensity. So it's just, if you like to see people, work hard and grind in the sport of football, that's your game.
And football's back when Chris Collinsworth's on TV is saying, "Now here's a guy." He always that's like his now here's a guy that can really sling a football. Every time that's Chris Collinsworth's on TV, life is good.
I love Chris Collinsworth. Yeah. He's so fire, honestly.
All the best commentators have a signature type of line or phrase, and for sure Collinsworth is. Want to talk about a guy?
Yeah, no, he's football's Mike Breen. Is that a stretch? Is that a little bit of? They're a little different, and they're
because they play by
play, But in terms of his relevance and in terms of his iconic voice,
and almost appearance too. They kind of have the
wrong button alert. We just got new buttons in here, so let's try that again. We're gonna
good try there, bud.
Shot from Curry.
Ooh.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Oh wait, but Hall of Fame game. No starters played. But let's just celebrate that football's back, bro. Football's back. We got some exciting preseason to watch too. It's gonna really lay out some fantasy implications in the case of injuries, in the case of any breakout stars before the draft happens, and it's gonna be interesting to watch. Now, with the start of the season coming, we decided to take a step back and really start to dissect who's going to make a cool little impact this year. So we all respectively made our own top 5 lists in regards to fantasy of players that, all across the spans, offense and defense, that we think are going to have an impact. So to open it up, I'm going to go ahead and share my top 5. Now, my top 5 is a very niche type of list. It is a top 5 breakout stars. So stars that are going to break out and show why they are deserving of a star role and are playing better than their average draft position. I feel like the ADP is going to play a big role into this. So in no specific order, for offensive breakout stars, the first one that came to mind was Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, he's the second-year wide receiver on the Jets. He just got a new quarterback this offseason in the one and only Aaron Rodgers. It is going to be very exciting to see these two pair up. Maybe we could see maybe like a Tay Adams and Rodgers 2.0. Wilson and Rodgers, we're going to see how they connect. A lot of good things going on in training camp for them. And then, so for my next one, we got Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, I think he's a third-year running back. Please forgive me if I'm wrong. Third-year running back, coming back from an ACL injury. He is on the Denver Broncos and under Sean Payton's system. Anyone in Sean Payton's offense, under that offensive guru, is going to excel. We've seen what he's done with the Saints and how much success he's had with them. Third, this is going to be a dark horse, but Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts with Desmond Ridder really getting solidified into that starter role and having the chance to build chemistry in the offseason and training camp, he is poised to have a good season. His target share is going to be competing with Drake London, but really, he's one of the most athletic tight ends we've seen in recent history. He's big, he's long, and he's fast.
Is he finally going to break out, though, right? Because it's like every season it's like breakout candidate. His role has enough, and then now it's like it's getting to the point where it's now or never, right?
Yeah.
And is Ridder really the guy to break him out?
We'll see. The thing with the young quarterback is that the tight end's always a safety valve. But he's not your typical tight end, though, because right he's running routes that are more so like a wide receiver would run. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if he becomes that safety valve for him. I don't know if they drop him low enough to always be like dinking and dunking to him, but I would agree. I think that it's kind of a make or break year for Kyle Pitts. It's like you either get some stats and get your numbers up this year, or everybody's gonna start like believing the hype.
No, for real. It's going to be interesting to watch. To continue with the list, no specific order, but the next one I got is Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney on the Kansas City Chiefs. With his trade from the Giants to the Chiefs last year, their offense made a step up, and he is a very talented receiver. And when you have the best quarterback in the game, anything is possible. So his team up with Patrick Mahomes, it's gonna be something interesting this season.
I like that pick. I like that specifically just because Juju has also left town.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot more targets for him, and we've seen what he can do when he's healthy. So I think he's an explosive wide receiver, and especially, like you said, pair him with the best quarterback, best player in the game. It's a recipe for success.
Indeed. And this last one, I think you're gonna like this last one. Who is retired?
Brandon Ayuk.
My final breakout star is actually going to be Alexander Madison.
Ooh,
with the sole role in Minnesota's backfield, he is primed for a career year. Whenever he fills in for Dalvin Cook, he never misses when he fills in for Dalvin Cook. So much similar to, and I say this from my own experience, Samaje Perine, whenever he came in for Joe Mixon, he was lights out. And I think the same thing is going to happen. Well, the same thing does happen with Alexander Madison, but when he gets that final role, that starter role, it's gonna be interesting to watch. But that is my top 5 offensive breakout stars for this season.
Yeah. No, I really like that a lot, and especially, I mean, Madison, huge, Scanny and Fleet guy in past in our fantasy league, and yeah, you kept him this year as one of your dynasty keepers, and I would agree with you, Fancy. He can be a breakout candidate for sure this year.
Definitely a 3-down back, like all the way, and it's just like if they use him in the same, or they're gonna use him in the same way they use Cook.
Right.
He's fresher, he's healthier, and he has less wear and tear on the tires. So we're gonna see how that goes.
Also, one more thing before we move on. The thing about Madison that's great is that he was already used in that 3rd down role, so he's a pass-catching back naturally. Right. So now, and then he's shown that he can also carry the load, like with handoffs and running the ball as well. So now he transitions perfectly, like literally seamlessly into that 3-down role where he can bring everything to the table. And for a Vikings offense that's pretty explosive, and I think that he replaces Cook pretty well in terms of his skill set.
Right.
He's got a role that could be dangerous when it comes to fantasy.
A couple other guys too that we didn't mention. I don't think I have 5 guys in the list, but Jahan Dotson. We see a lot of players.
I had him last year. I had him, for a rook. Take it away.
And we know that rookie to second year jump is like monumental. We see a lot of rookies that are monsters early on, but then the second year they go from being a really good player to a star. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I'm not saying he's one of those guys, but he's got that potential. Another one of those guys might be Chris Olave. Really liked him last year in New Orleans. Not 100% on the quarterback play of Derek Carr. We'll have to see how that chemistry, between those two guys is.
I feel like you can make the argument that his first season was a breakout season.
You definitely could. But I think there's a difference between having a good season and being like a top 15 fantasy.
But also putting people on notice.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, this is Olave's team now.
Yeah.
And with Kamara being out the first 3 games, probably going to lean on the pass a little more. And speaking of running backs, one more of the breakout stars, Jahmyr Gibbs down in Detroit. From Alabama, first-round pick running back. DeAndre Swift, goodbye. David Montgomery, hello. And now Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are the two-headed monster in Detroit. And that's a team that's going to put up a lot of points this year. So watch out for those young stars because they're on the rise.
Fun fact, the Lions actually sold out their season tickets for the first time in franchise history. And we just have a very subtle power drill in the back.
Excuse the
or a power saw. Who's doing carpentry at
That's crazy.
9 o'clock at night?
The 9 o'clock carpentry. We absolutely love that.
All right.
Well, we're gonna do a little hard cut here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cut this in editing, and we'll come right back with the next list. But we're gonna pause this for right now.
Few moments later, 1 eternity later, 3 days later.
All right, and we're back. So let's resume right where we were before the commotion started happening there. But we just finished up Fancy's list, and now let's dive right into a segment that I like to call Fleet's Flexes. Give me a little flex. Give me a little. Yep. All right, let's dive right into it. So Fleet's Flexes is kind of this angle where everybody has those top stars that you have on your fantasy team, right? Your star quarterbacks, your star running backs, and wide receivers, so on and so forth. But I want to kind of focus more on the angle of the flex players and the people that you can really count on week in and week out to be consistent scorers for you, because you can always have those guys that get in standard scoring 30 points, 30, 40 points and go off and carry you. But you always got to have those guys that supplement those big games and get you the 12 to 18 points that are going to really win you leagues and win you games from week to week. So let's dive right into it. All right. First of all, my first one, I have Keenan Allen. So Keenan Allen, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers. I know that he's getting older, but he is an elite route runner, and he's may not be putting up, 8 for 120 and 2 touchdowns anymore, but he's going to get you a lot of catches, especially in PPR leagues.
He's consistently missing 8 games. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it, bro.
Certainly the last few years he has, but for the majority of his career, he has been Mr. Consistent.
I'm sorry, bro. I could not hold it in. He's solid.
I love that you just couldn't hold it.
I could not. I was over here dying.
You're not wrong.
You tried not to laugh.
Damn, you're right.
I'm crying too.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Keep her going, man.
We just laughed at this. All right, I'm sorry. Go.
No, we're good. I mean, you're not wrong. So there is that aspect to it, right? But when he does play, and when he has had many complete years in the past,
right,
when he does play, he is one of the best consistent wide receivers that there is, because he's an elite route runner, and he's somebody that
It's not that funny anymore.
I'm still
Christ.
Oh my God.
We're good. We're
Okay.
now back in. I'm done crying. I'm done laughing. Locking back in.
Okay. He's an elite. You know what? I'm going to the next one.
Probably your best bet.
Forget it. We're going to the next one. Okay, this one can be somebody who I think can break out as a consistent flex this year. I'm going to go Brandon Cooks. He's in Dallas, wide receiver, new weapon for Dak Prescott. And when you got Dalton Schultz that has left, and of course Amari Cooper from a couple years ago, that's a lot more target share for him there. He's a really good route runner, and he's that kind of intermediate to long range type of threat. And he's somebody that can, like I said, he's a great route runner, and I've heard reports that I've read online that he has a good rapport going on with Dak Prescott right now in training camp when Dak's not throwing interceptions.
He wants to win too. Like he really wants to win and play good football.
And the thing with Brandon Cooks is that he's produced with no matter what quarterback's thrown into him. And I would say probably to this point now, Dak's probably going to be the best quarterback that he's had in his career. So I would look for him to kind of be that person that gets like a 10 to...
I was saying, we're going to put Dak over Drew Brees?
That guy Drew sucked.
Yeah, I mean,
That's another conversation for another day, though.
Yeah.
Like,
But when he had him, Drew was not like in the prime of his career, though, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's a good shout, though. I mean, yeah, he's probably better than Dak, right? But Dak, at least in the last few years, he's been in Houston, and then he's been where else? I mean,
he was in the Rams.
Do we even know who was throwing the ball to him, like in Houston?
he hasn't even gotten a ring, has he?
No, was he a Ram?
He played.
When they won?
He was a Ram
he
when
was
they
there,
lost to New England.
Yeah.
And
he got
was
cracked, remember? And like he missed some
that's
games
right.
or whatever.
And he was on the Saints when they had lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship
game?
Yeah, when bro just got
Yeah. Okay, moving on. My next one, I have somebody in a new spot, running back for New Orleans, Jamal Williams. So last year, just an absolute monster at this position without having to have as many touches. But I think that
he's a poacher. I swear, touchdown
he
poacher.
is.
Sorry.
And in fantasy terms, that's valuable.
Yeah.
That's very valuable. And I see him now, and especially of course, his value's up now that Kamara just got slapped on the wrist with that 3 games. But I think even past 3 game suspension, he's going to have value where he gets all the goal line touches, and he's somebody that really churns out yardage when he gets touches in between the sticks. And so I think Jamal could be one of those players who, like I said, is not a star, but in those later, like mid to later rounds where you could kind of snag him up, and he could be somebody that produces in flex positions, especially during when you have bye week fills and different stuff like that, where you run into problems having multiple people on like a bye week, and then you need some flex fills. Right. So I think that he could be a really valuable fill. Another running back that, and probably you guys are probably going to be a little bit surprised by this one, but I got James Cook in Buffalo.
Oh, I'm not surprised by that. No.
Buffalo running back. Thanks, Will.
That's a great pick.
That's a solid pick.
No, yeah.
He's solid, though.
With Devin Singletary gone now, and he's kind of already had this reputation as a pass-catching back, I think he kind of has a similar transition like what Madison is doing for Vikings, maybe not to that same capacity, but I think he has the chance to be able to take over that backfield and be a 3-down back, somebody that can run in the early downs, but also be running routes and being that kind of that check down release person. And especially in a high octane offense, he's got one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best fantasy quarterback in Josh Allen. And I think he could get not only a lot of carries, but a lot of PPR points as well. And if we're talking full point PPR leagues, I mean, that's just invaluable coming out of a running back spot.
Right.
Okay, and my last one, who you guys will probably bag on too for getting injured, but when he does play again, is very consistent. Chris Godwin. So again,
I can't be mad at it. No, I can't be mad at it.
Not an elite receiver from a fantasy perspective, but he's going to be somebody who is that wide receiver 2 to like flex 1, who is going to get an absolute target. He's an absolute target hog is what he is. And again, he runs great routes, and he finds those spaces in between the zone defense, and he can even tear apart a man-to-man. And he's got good hands. He's going to get you a lot of points in those PPR leagues. And like I said, there was so many times, and I had him on my team last year, there were so many times where it was like 12 for 83. And it's like, you got so many points off of the PPR already, but then you add in just solid yardage gains like 70 to 100 range. Right. And most of the time he doesn't really score. He's never really been a big touchdown receiver, but he relies heavily on being a secure receiver and running great routes. And I think that also he's learned in the last few years because of the injuries to not always fight for the extra yardage and lower the shoulder and kind of do that Julian Edelman type of thing where he just dives at the feet and gets a couple more yards and protects himself. And I think that, with Baker Mayfield there in Tampa Bay this year, I think there's going to be a lot more intermediate routes, and he'll be able to fill those gaps and be a valuable receiver at that flex position.
A couple other guys that building on the consistency. Tight ends. I didn't hear any tight ends in that list, so let me give you a couple guys.
It's a short
like
bucket.
Because it's like elite and then non-elite.
No,
yeah,
I feel
the
like
drop off is so severe.
I found a middle.
Yeah, I'm curious who you're gonna say.
I'll give an elite example first. Mark Andrews. He is elite, but he's been consistent for like 3 years straight.
Former fancy son.
Yeah, he's gone to elite levels now. But the last for 3 or 4 seasons, he started off as being consistent, and now he's in the elite level. But someone that's consistent, never been elite, but really good is Dallas Goedert. I feel like he's always like in that 8 to 6, top 8 to top 6 tight end range. Good hands, 4 catches, 53 yards, and a touchdown kind of performance week in and week out. Always giving you like 8 to 10 points somewhere in there. Never a 40 bomb, but Never 2 points either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree with that as well.
I like that.
I chose not to focus on tight ends because it's so hard, and it's like even the ones like Goddard. If you were to go back and look at his game log, he is, if you want to call that consistent for the tight end position, just because it's so scarce. But even then, it's like there's weeks where he just doesn't catch much. Right. And I mean, so most weeks, like I would agree with you. He's going to get you maybe that 4 to 6 catch range, and maybe he'll have those games where he has multiple touchdowns and stuff like that. So he's going to be a contributor. But again, just at the tight end position, it's like after the top 5, it's like it's a crapshoot. Yeah. So
it's tough.
It is tough. It's very tough. So,
well, let's head over to the scan market. The scan market's where we evaluate player stocks rising, going up, going down. And right now, we're going to talk about 5 players, big name players that in past years you'd grab them, but this year leave them there. If you can draft this person in the 4th, 5th round, don't do it. Save yourself. And the first name on my list is Mike Evans. Mike, we love you, but without Tom there, or no Jameis there, I don't know if Mike Evans is a guy you can count on going forward. His numbers have dwindled little by little, and it seems like Godwin's target share is a little bit too much for Mike Evans' production to stay afloat. So stay away from Mike Evans. Another one I'm going to mention here is, you guys know, my love for DeAndre Swift runs high. DeAndre Swift is someone I sold a lot for last season, and it really bit me in the behind, so please avoid Swift. I know he's in Philly now. Change of scenery, new offense, yeah. I still would not draft him anywhere in the top 20 running backs. I think there's a lot of guys with a lot more value than Swift. He's also injured a lot, and a lot of people question his want to play football. He's got that Andrew Wiggins side of him, doesn't really want to play there. Just kidding. We're also going to look at
just question your passions.
Another big name player in a new place is going to be Adam Thielen. He's someone that in Minnesota was a guy you could count on, and he's got new threads. He's in Carolina now, but that's a big name player who's getting older, and I just don't think with a first-year quarterback that there's going to be some chemistry issues there, and we'll see how he does out there, but I would stay away for now. A lot of guys with a lot of value. Receivers really, really deep. So guys like Adam Thielen, those big name players, stay away. I see you got something you want to say.
I was going to say, he's been in the league for a long time. I just found out he first of all, he was an undrafted player. Yeah. He was undrafted, then spent the next 11 years of his career with Minnesota. 11 years with Minnesota from being undrafted. To be retained within an organization that long and being undrafted, like I'm sure he's a big locker room guy. He's got to be, but I don't know. I'm low-key rooting for him, so I may be biased, but I'm hoping a bit of a Adam Thielen renaissance is upon us.
I hope so too. I'm not putting money on it.
Oh no, yeah, definitely. I feel you.
But I'm gonna go back to one of Fancy's guys here, and I'm gonna say Javonte Williams is someone I might stay away from this season. There's a lot of data on running backs coming back from an ACL injury, and the data shows that first year usually is a bit of a struggle. There's injury concerns, there's limitations on how many carries a guy might get. There's a lot of question marks, and Javonte is really talented. He's a young player, but as of right now, he's not someone I would draft very high. And I know you had him on your list earlier, so sorry to.
That was more so wishful thinking because in the case that he does come back and is better than ever, because he also has Samaje Perine that can help bring him back in a more gradual sense than just putting him back into that first starter role. And Sean Payton is a mastermind. I'm sure he can find some type of way to get Javonte in there, because he also came out and said that Javonte is going to play in the preseason. So They're trying to get him some run early so that he can get that knee back to where it was and kind of get back into football shape so that he can help that team get to a Super Bowl, Right. So, but
a little sidebar, you know what else the stats prove? Even if Javonte does ball, he's not getting paid.
That's very true.
That's very true.
Before we go on a tangent about running back payments, I'm going to say my last guy on this list. And this one hurts me because he's a keeper of mine. And it might be controversial, but this year I would avoid the Packers backfield if I could, because nobody really knows what that situation is going to be with Jordan Love. I think personally Love's a good quarterback, but they're going to be stacking the box quite a bit. They got a bunch of young receivers and a young quarterback. Aaron Jones is someone I would stay away from if I could. I can't, because I kept that guy, because I had very limited options.
You got to keep your assets. Yeah.
You got to keep what you got to keep. But for me personally, in a redraft leagues, or if I'm not in a league where he was kept, I would probably avoid Aaron Jones going this season. So those are my guys. Mike Evans being that top one to avoid. Anybody else you guys want to add?
No, not on my end, but I do know that we had defensive flip sides for all of our lists. So let's go ahead and start back at the top and go back into each of our top fives, but defensive players. For me, my defensive breakout seasons or defensive breakout stars in terms of fantasy. First and foremost, it's the one and only. He is a current fancy son and one of my keepers. It's gonna be Zaire Franklin. Zaire Franklin, who was filling in for Shaquille Leonard last season, who was suffering through a very consistent back injury that kept him out almost the entire season. With Zaire Franklin, he's gonna be slotted into that starter role with Bobby Okereke. And they're going to be the new middle of that defense, and it's going to be exciting to see. Zaire Franklin was a top 10 linebacker. I'm estimating he's going to keep that ranking of being a top 10, maybe even into top 5. Fingers crossed. Next up, we got the keeper of the one and only. Shout out to the boss men are back. His keeper is Dre Greenlaw, linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. He is one of the top linebackers in the league in a nasty tandem with the one and only Fred Warner, my favorite player. Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, they are nasty in that backfield, and Dre is a tackle machine. In our league, tackles are everything, especially amongst the linebackers. They give you the most points. They're the most versatile, so we need those points. Up next, this one's a bit of a homer pick for me. I had him two seasons ago. He is Kazir White, who is currently on Arizona. A little bit of his track record: he was on the Chargers, was playing very well in LA for the Chargers, then got traded to the Eagles. Kind of had a rough patch with the Eagles, and they had an amazing defense, but he kind of fell back on the depth charts. But coming into Arizona is full-blown rebuild mode, and he is slotted in that Mike linebacker role. So on a team that is rebuilding, really trying to see what talents they have, this is a perfect opportunity for him to resurge, claim that middle linebacker spot, and let Arizona and the league know that he is that guy. Last person I have is the Carolina Panthers. There you go. The name was escaping me. The Carolina Panthers middle linebacker, Shaq Thompson. Shaq Thompson is really, honestly, also a bit biased. I had him on my team, but he is a very athletic middle linebacker. He showed some high promise when about 2 seasons ago he was, I believe, leading his team in tackles, and I hope that this trend continues. So then that Carolina team, they are young. They are also in a rebuild, so they have nothing to lose, and they have nothing to do but show out and show up. But those are my top 5 defensive breakout stars for fantasy. Let's go ahead and have you
it's good.
Give it up.
Yeah, so shout out Fancy, because definitely Fleet's list was IDP breakouts, so that's an interesting list that you did there.
Oh,
but we'll double down. That's why I looked at your screen like interesting. But anyways, we don't have any overlap, so we'll just keep it going.
Beautiful. Okay, that's on me.
So let's dip right into it. My first one is a Fleetster from last year himself, linebacker for the New Orleans Saints, Pete Werner.
I knew the Werner.
That's your guy. Oh my God, that is your guy.
Pete Werner. So, by the way, if not for injuries last year, he probably would have had a top 8-ish type of campaign. He was just a monster all over the field. And the thing is that Demario Davis is kind of not the tackle hawk that he once was. And I think that's where Werner comes in. He's very young, very spry, and he can cover sideline to sideline, and he's a tackle monster. So I would look for him to kind of have a really big season. When I watch him play, which I watched a lot of games last year, he reminds me, the way that he produces tackles is very much like an Alex Singleton, where he's always a ball hawk. He's always around the ball. Like, even if it was on the opposite side of the field, he's somehow in the play just in case it happens to reverse or they're going back the other way. And so he's just always by the ball, and that always equals in points, whether it's a solo tackle, an assist, so on and so forth. So moving on, my next one I have is a linebacker in Atlanta, Troy Anderson. Okay. So Troy Anderson at the end of last year kind of was taken over on an every down role in Atlanta, and now this year throughout training camp he's been wearing the green dot, and he's kind of been the leader for the defense so far. So he's going to be an every down type of linebacker, and with the Atlanta Falcons likely being the worst team in the league with a horrendous offense, that defense will be on the field a ton.
Oh, and they just lost Jeff Okuda. He just got a little
He
bit
got
of
carted
injury.
off today. I don't know what the extent of the injury is, but I did see he got carted off.
They traded for Jeff Okuda, cornerback from the Detroit Lions this past offseason.
Top 5 pick, I want to say as
Top
well.
five
right?
pick,
Top
yes.
5 pick.
Yeah, he was up there for sure. So yeah, I mean, with that defense not being great and that offense likely not spending a lot of time on the field, that's going to be a lot of snaps that linebacker is going to be playing. So I would look for him to get a big boost in production compared to last year when he was in a partial role. My third one is going to be Uchenna Nwosu, DN from the Seattle Seahawks. Last year, 60-plus tackles and a 9.5 sack campaign. Inked a new 3-year deal this offseason with the Seattle Seahawks, and he's only 26 years old, so he's really young, coming off of his best season, and I think I can only see him kind of growing on that. Seattle, again, kind of going to be a middle to lower of the pack kind of defensive special teams. And so I could see him getting a lot of play time on the field as well, and I could see him breaking double digits this year on the sack numbers, and maybe even getting that tackle number up just a little bit because he'll be in the action a little bit more. So I would look for him to make some more noise and build off of that year that he had last year, especially with some fresh money and a fresh deal, and he's got to step up his game. People know who he is, so I think that's somebody I would look out for on the DN spot. This one is going to be popular amongst the panel here. Former Niner, I've got Tennessee linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair.
Oh,
Yeah.
So coming over from San Francisco, we've got him now in Tennessee, and he was kind of the odd man out, if you would say, with Fred Warner and, like you said, the aforementioned Dre Greenlaw. He was kind of the one who made plays but also didn't kind of get the recognition in the snap count compared to those guys, because those are, rightfully so, those guys are studs and they deserve their spot in San Francisco's defense. But he is now going to be in a full-time role every single down in Tennessee. And I would look for him to really make some noise, because when he had extensive playing time, when there was injuries, he was putting up numbers. And he is somebody that flies all over the field. He may not be the fastest, but when he gets downhill, he's laying the hat and he's making tackles. So I would really look for a breakout season from him. He'll probably have a career year, just injury and health permitting. But I would look for him to really have a career year in tackles. And also, he's wearing the green dot during training camp. So, of course, green dot's always going to be on the field for the defensive unit. Last but not least, I'm going to have to go again with an Atlanta player just because of the amount of snaps they're going to be playing. I'm going to go with safety Richie Grant.
Oh,
pick.
yeah. That's a good pick.
So here's a guy that's a DB and a defense that's going to be absolutely abysmal. At least that's what I would predict. And he's going to be likely an every down DB, and he's a type of DB who is a tackling defensive back. He's not as much a coverage guy. And so he's going to be playing up in the box, almost like a de facto type of linebacker, and that extra body that could drop down into the box during the run game, and also kind of in that short coverage, maybe the tight ends and slot receivers, kind of stuff like that. So last year had a really good campaign, actually put up a lot of tackles last year, even though I believe he missed some games due to health. But I would look for him to actually have a career year as well, just because of the uptick in tackles and the amount of snaps that he's playing. So that rounds out my 5. And yeah, we'll go to Scanny from here.
Right on. Back to the scan marker we go. Evaluating talent, stock up, stock down for the IDPs this go around. Let's get it going.
Let's do it.
We're going to tap into a guy that Will mentioned already, Niner legend in the making, and that is Dre Greenlaw. I have been saying this for about a season and a half. I love Fred Warner. And technically and his everything about Fred probably is the best linebacker potentially in football. A little bias there. He might be the best linebacker in football on a technical scale, but in fantasy, he's not the best provider of fantasy points. That's where Dre Greenlaw comes in, because Dre Greenlaw is giving you 142.5 our league scoring, which is about, let's just say 12 tackles a game, solo tackles a game. He is a dog, and he is young, and he is fast, and he is strong, and he is all over that field in fantasy. So Dre Greenlaw, stock is up.
Also a really chill dude. sidebar. I got to meet him, Fred Warner, and Azir Al-Shaair. All three of them are actually very close knit. They're really they're the same position group. They are really close knit. They really vibe with each other. And when they realized they were gonna play their last game together, they all had a huddle and had a very sentimental connection and subtle talk. So one of them were mic'd up. So it's really dope. They're an awesome trio.
Fire. Right on. We're going to go to a fleet and scan kind of guy, just like Alexander Madison. I'm sorry. I threw an N in there. It's Madison, right?
It's Madison.
I always say Mattinson, but I'm pretty sure I'm just throwing a letter.
Madison.
Madison. Don't even know my own players. Going with Bobby Wagner because he's back in Seattle after a very rough team year as a Ram. He was a good Ram, but the team did not do well. He's back in Seattle with that young, scrappy defense. Geno Smith behind the helm now. I think Bobby's going to have another humongous season. He's back home, back in front of that 12th man. I just see Bobby rising. So Bobby Wagner, his stock was already high, but I'm going a little higher. Yeah. Take me higher.
Yeah, people already held that stock. Now they just got to hold on to that stock and don't sell it.
Riding. We'll like that. Take me up. I'm not going to do it again. Not the Kawhi left. Not the Kawhi left.
What are you talking about right now?
So we go with we're gonna go back to another Fleetster here, and that is Josie Jewell. Jewell. How do we say his name?
Jewel. His name's Josie.
Josie, yeah. Josie, yeah.
Like you're not saying Jose a funny way?
No, it's Josey.
Wait, are you going double fleet right now?
I'm going double fleet. There you go. Going Josie, man. Josie's a good player. He's a stud linebacker, and he had some injuries last year.
How you spell it?
Josey. Josie.
What was the last name?
Jewell.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Or Jewel.
Cool. Continue.
Josie Jewell. He's a stud, man. Like, he's just a solid linebacker. He's another one of those guys that's all over the field, getting tackles, making plays, deflecting passes, got the quick hands. And Broncos country, man, they're all about that defense. So I think Josie's going to lead a really strong defense this season up there in Denver. Mile high, baby. I'm going to go with a tandem of I'm going to cheat a little bit. We're supposed to do 5 guys. I'm going to go with 6. I'm doing a little bit of a tandem here.
Combination.
There we go. I'm going back to the Niners because they're a very relevant fantasy team. I'm going to go 2 guys that I'm stocked down on a little bit this season, and that's going to be Talanoa Hufanga and Fred Warner. Simply because I think Talanoa Hufanga last season, he had a really, really strong first half. And he was exciting all year. He made plays all year. Nothing against him. He's a really cool player to watch. He's even a
Pro Bowler.
He's a monster. But I do think that the second half of the season it showed a side of him that was a little more vulnerable. And I do think his numbers dwindled a little bit. And I think he's going to come back to earth a little bit. Not that I think he's a bad player. Not that I think he's going to be not an asset. I just don't think he's going to be at the level we expected him to be after the first 8 weeks of last season. And same with Fred Warner, the same thing I was talking about earlier. His skill set doesn't translate to fantasy so much. And with Drake Greenlaw being a bigger part of that defense day by day, I'm a little bit down on Fred Warner coming into this season. Sorry to say. But my last guy, I'm going to go back stock up. We're going to go with a fancy man. And that's Cole Holcomb, who's going over to Pittsburgh.
Oh, he once was a fancy man.
He was
on my breakout list, but I took him off.
Yeah.
Cole Holcomb, man, he's a good player. He's a commander for a long time, and now he's going over to Pittsburgh. And another team that's probably going to be on the field quite a bit defensively because that offense is not going to do a whole lot is those Steelers. So expect Cole Holcomb to stay healthy this year and to have a big season. So Cole Holcomb is on the rise. Drake Greenlaw on the rise. B-Wags on the rise. Your boy Josie Jewell on the rise. And stock down, we're going to Hufanga and Fred Warner, and that's the scan market.
Yeah, just to touch on that Fred Warner point, the thing that's brutal sometimes about IDP and defensive fantasy is that sometimes the best players aren't the best fantasy defensive players.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, a guy like Fred Warner, who's probably one of the best, if not the best in coverage, the guys who stink at coverage are the guys who get the most points sometimes because they're the ones that guard the tight ends or those slot receivers and they get a catch and then they get immediately a solo tackle. So the thing with like Fred, it's like he covers so well that he doesn't get those tackle opportunities from a pass protection type of point of view, and he's mostly has to do a lot of his scoring work in rushing downs.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Also, just because I feel like this is relevant and we had a great laugh about it, Keenan Allen, last few years, this last year, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last 6 years, he's played double-digit games. Last year, yes, he was riddled by injury. He played 10 games.
Okay.
The years before that, 16, 13, 16, 14, 15. So he's not this guy that's going to be missing a ton of games every single year. He's had a couple rough stretches, but this last year was brutal for him. I see him kind of bouncing back and having a more healthy year and in that 14 to 16 game range this year. So, yeah. That's it for our 3 lists right now.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, I think in the next one, we're probably going to break down our fantasy league. We have a partial dynasty, and we'll get into the details on what that is. But we have a fantasy league that's probably been going on for about 12 years now. And we'd like to kind of break down the scoring, the roster dynamics, what we do for drafts, where we do the drafts, and kind of some of the traditions and the ins and outs of our iconic, legendary, whatever other word you want to use to describe it, this Dynasty League that us 3 are in, and we have about 5 other people in as well. So stay tuned for that one on the next one. We're going to break down that Dynasty League next. For Fleet,
Fancy.
Scanny.
we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yes,
See ya.
sir.
I had to clear my name.
This is Backyard Dynasty.